Go ahead and call the Sash cheating, but answer one question first. If a husband knows other men still want his wife, should that frighten him or remind him what he has? I was already legally married, yes, but our real wedding was 2 weeks away, and every bride gets one final night. I only wanted Graham to show that losing me would hurt. Of course, he always stopped in doorways with one hand on the frame, as if leaving required more courage than he had. I was sure one white sash would finally make him fight. By morning, everyone would know I was still the woman men competed for. My name is Delaney Brooks. I was 30, and I managed donor events at the Harcourt Arts Centre. My work taught me a simple rule. The first calm person to explain a bad moment usually decided what that moment meant. Graham and I were already husband and wife. We had signed the papers at the courthouse 8 months earlier because his mother needed surgery during the date we first chose. Our large ceremony was still coming. 200 guests and a string group I had selected. Graham owned a restoration company and had bought our house 3 years before meeting me. When we first dated, his steadiness felt like devotion. After my late donor galas, he waited on the Arts Centre loading dock with hot sandwiches wrapped in foil. We sat on the concrete steps after midnight while I told him which rich guest had been rude and which painting had sold. He never rushed me. Later, he rebuilt the balcony because I once said morning coffee should feel like a holiday. Those things were real. So was the part where Graham could go quiet until I wanted to shake an answer out of him. My father had gone quiet before leaving my mother. No final fight. No broken plate. He packed while I was at school and left his key on the table. My mother told me that men argued while they still cared. Once a man stopped feeling jealous, he had already found the door. I carried that lesson into every relationship. The first time I said 3 men had tried to buy me drinks, Graham pulled me close and said they had good taste. The next time, he asked whether I had given anyone my number. I accused him of acting like I belonged to him. After that, his responses became careful. If he cared, I needed to see it. One Friday, 6 men spoke to me during a girls' night. I counted because the number mattered more than any face. Graham was standing in the bedroom doorway when I came home. He asked whether I had enjoyed myself. I told him about all 6 men. He said he trusted me. That sounded like indifference, so I asked whether another man taking me home would bother him at all. His hand tightened on the wood. He said trust was not the same as not caring. I told him that if he ever tried to control me, he would end up alone. He stayed in the doorway for 4 seconds, then walked downstairs. Of course, I thought he was avoiding another hard conversation. The next morning, I joked in our family wedding chat that I was single until the ceremony. Kelsey sent dancing icons. My aunt asked whether courthouse vows counted only on weekdays. Graham replied once. He said we had been legally married for 8 months. No anger. No joke. One plain fact. Rachel, his sister, reacted with a small check mark. Nobody else wrote for an hour. I told Graham he had embarrassed me by making a joke sound serious. He said marriage was serious, even when I used it for entertainment. His calm made the whole exchange heavier than it needed to be. My bachelorette party was already booked. 1 private room. 4 bridesmaids. A club Kelsey promised would treat me like the last unmarried woman alive. I decided Graham needed to remember that papers did not make me impossible to lose. The jealousy tests became a habit before either of us called them that. After one Arts Centre dinner, I told Graham a donor's son had asked me to go to Paris. The man had really asked whether I liked Paris. Graham listened while removing his cufflinks and said the difference mattered. I accused him of protecting another man because admitting jealousy would make him feel weak. At a hotel fundraiser, a guest wrote his number on my seating card. I photographed it before throwing it away and showed Graham in the car. He asked why I had saved it. I said I wanted to be honest. He said honesty would have been refusing the card after saying I was married. I accused him of punishing me for somebody else's attention. After another event, I said a photographer had followed me to the coach room. Graham asked whether I wanted him to contact security. I said he was trying to turn attention into danger because he could not stand that I still attracted it. 2 nights, 4 compliments. One husband who could never choose the correct answer. If he cared, he would fight for me without being asked. Graham finally named the pattern on our balcony. He said I brought men into the marriage as tests, then punished him for taking the tests. I told him I was keeping us alive. Married women did not stop wanting to feel visible. He agreed with that. Then he asked for one boundary before the Bachelorette party. I could drink and dance. I could stay at the hotel with my friends. I could do anything that did not require pretending I was unmarried. He asked me not to remove my ring, invite private attention, or turn our marriage into the joke of the night. I said he had listed 3 rules while claiming he was not controlling. He stood in the balcony doorway, palm flat against the frame. He said they were not rules for my body. They were the conditions under which he could remain inside the marriage. For once, Graham did not let me change the subject. He reminded me of the hotel card, the donor's son, and the 6 men from Friday. He said the individual encounters were not the main wound. The wound was that I brought each one home like a receipt and waited for him to prove his love by suffering over it. I asked whether he expected me to hide attention from him. He said he expected me to reject attention that required disrespecting us. I told him he wanted a wife who looked down whenever a man entered the room. Graham said he wanted a wife who did not need a stranger to make her husband afraid. The sentence reached too close to the real thing. I called it controlling and went inside. The following Tuesday, I brought lunch to Rachel at the restoration company. She managed payroll from a small office that smelled like wood dust and printer paper. Graham had owned the company with her before I met him. He held most of it. Rachel had the rest. I attended the holiday dinners and used the company car when Graham traveled, so the legal shape of it never interested me. Rachel asked whether I had chosen a final head count for the ceremony. I said Graham might need 1 fewer chair if he kept treating me like property. She did not smile. She said threatening to leave him every time he named a boundary was not freedom. The words were too exact. I asked what Graham had told her. Rachel said he had told her what I said, when I said it, and what he had asked for before the Bachelorette. Nothing more. I accused him of building a team against me. Rachel said he had spent years protecting me from the natural meaning of my own words, and she had asked him to stop. She opened the family wedding chat on her computer. Graham's messages contained no complaint about my clothes, friends, or drinking. He had written only that we were already legally married and that public jokes about being single were not joint jokes. Rachel asked what part of that statement was false. I said the betrayal was sharing it. She said facts did not become betrayal because I preferred another version. I left the food on her desk. Our house had also belonged to Graham before me. Everyone knew that. He had bought it when the roof leaked and the back wall was open to rain. I had chosen curtains and furniture after moving in, which made the house feel ours in every way that mattered. The ceremony money felt the same. Graham's parents had paid the venue deposits after we moved the date for his mother. I chose the flowers, menu, and music. Their money became my wedding the moment I made it beautiful. Use felt like ownership. Nobody corrected that feeling until the night it mattered. Kelsey showed me the sash during lunch at a bridal cafe. White satin, black letters, single tonnet across the front. You are still have-o, chance across the back. I laughed for almost a minute. Kelsey had ordered it from a party shop that printed rude bridal games. She slid it across the table beside a packet of temporary tattoos and a card listing dares. One dare required a stranger to buy me a drink. Another required collecting 3 phone numbers. The final one asked me to let a man write directly on the sash. I said the numbers might be too much. Kelsey reminded me how calm Graham had been about the seating card. She said 3 numbers would wake him up without hurting anyone. Nor did not. She asked whether Graham had approved it. I said brides did not ask husbands to approve jokes. Kelsey had brought 3 black markers. She suggested letting men sign the sash if they wanted a chance. I said I would wear it for 1 photograph, maybe 2. Long enough for Graham to understand that desire did not end at the courthouse. Nor said the wording was not about desire. It was a lie. She asked what I wanted Graham to do after seeing the photograph. I said he could come to the club if he cared. Kelsey smiled and said that was the real game. I told them it was not a game. It was reassurance. Graham had become so sure of me that he no longer acted afraid, nor asked whether I would feel loved if he arrived angry. I said anger would at least be a feeling I could see. I reminded her that the formal wedding had not happened yet. She reminded me that the legal one had. I folded the sash and put it in my handbag. That evening, Graham asked how lunch had gone. He stood in the front doorway while rain darkened the shoulders of his coat. I told him Kelsey had planned harmless bride games. He asked whether any game involved pretending I was single. I said no. One answer. 2 letters. Easy. He watched my face, then stepped inside. I had promised him a normal bachelorette. I planned to keep that promise for most of the night. Our pre-wedding dinner took place in a private room above an Italian restaurant. Clara, the coordinator, had arranged place cards for both families and the wedding party. I sat beside Graham. Kelsey sat across from us with Noor. Rachel had a clear view of everyone. Rain and garlic drifted through the open windows. A model table stood beside Clara's folder with MR. Brokes and MRS. Brokes at the center. The first hour went well. Then Kelsey asked how many men had tried to stop me from reaching the altar. It was a joke. I answered with a number. 8. 3 at donor events. 2 in bars. 1 at a train station. The other 2 barely counted, but 8 sounded better than 6. My uncle laughed. Kelsey raised her glass. I told the table Graham should be proud that he had defeated so much competition. I described the hotel guest, the donor's son, and a man at the station. Each story grew slightly. Rachel asked why those men belonged in a dinner about our marriage. I said Graham should know he had won something valuable. Graham placed his napkin beside his plate. His fingers rested on the edge as if straight lines could save the evening. I asked whether he was proud. He said attention from strangers had nothing to do with our vows. I asked whether he was worried. He said worry would not make my choices for me. There it was again. No correct response, no heat. If he cared, he would have looked at those men as a threat. I told the table Graham believed trust meant never showing that he wanted to keep me. Then I said marriage should not turn a woman into property. Graham asked whether picking me up after every event counted as wanting to keep me. He mentioned the loading dock, the hotel fundraiser, and the night he drove 40 minutes because my phone had died. I said transportation was not passion. Graham asked whether I remembered our first loading dock sandwich. I said memories did not excuse years of emotional distance. He said he remembered every one, because those nights were when he first believed being dependable could be enough for me. His voice stayed quiet, but his mother looked away. I heard a request for praise inside it and refused to give him one. I told the room reliability was not the same as desire. He folded his napkin once, set it beside his plate, and said perhaps I had never wanted love unless it arrived frightened of losing me. The words landed harder than I intended. Graham looked at the model table instead of me. His mother stopped smiling. Kelsey tried to rescue the mood by saying practical men needed women like us to keep life interesting. I agreed. I said Graham could restore a house, but did not always know how to live inside one. My uncle laughed again. This time, nobody joined him. Rachel asked who had called me property. I said nobody needed to use the word when rules did the same work. Graham asked me to name one rule beyond not pretending I was single. The room became still. I could have stopped. Instead, I told him that if he tried to control my last free night, he could enjoy the ceremony alone. Kelsey laughed first. A few relatives followed because they thought I had made a sharp bride joke. Clara stopped writing. Noor said my name quietly. It sounded like a warning, which made me continue. I told the room Graham knew I always came home. If he could not handle other men wanting me, then he was not ready to stand before 200 guests and promise trust. Rachel asked whether trust meant advertising a chance. I said nobody had advertised anything. Kelsey's eyes moved toward my handbag. The sash was not inside yet, but the look was enough to make Noor understand that something had already been planned. Graham did not laugh. He said freedom did not require me to lie about being married. That was all. He stood, placed one hand on the doorframe, and told Clara he needed air. I watched him leave and told the table he always withdrew when a woman refused to be managed. My version landed because his chair was empty. Rachel asked Clara to continue. Graham's mother left early. Noor followed Graham into the hallway and returned saying he had asked whether I believed my own words or only needed witnesses. I called that emotional pressure. The dinner ended 20 minutes early. The next morning, Clara emailed both of us about every change I had requested alone. The flower count, the late bar, the hotel rooms. She asked each of us to confirm. I called her and said I had already approved those decisions. Clara explained that Graham had corrected several items I had described as joint choices. From then on, she needed an answer from both legal clients. I asked whether he had accused me of being dishonest. She said he had only provided dates, messages, and the decisions he had actually made. Facts. Graham's favourite hiding place. I told Kelsey he was turning our wedding into an audit because he could not handle one joke. She answered that the Sash would solve that. Once Graham saw how many men still wanted me, he would remember why he had proposed. I wrote back that I wanted him jealous enough to fight, but not angry enough to ruin the party. Kelsey promised to control the cameras. I sent Kelsey a photograph of the empty doorway and wrote that Graham would arrive if he cared. Noor saw the line before Kelsey turned the phone over. At our fitting, Noor asked what Graham could do that I would accept. I imagined him entering the club, pulling me away from another man, and naming me as his wife before everyone. I said none of it aloud. Noor reminded me that she had defended me before. The dinner changed her view because I made every answer wrong before Graham spoke. I accused her of changing sides. She said a purchased dress was not a reason to help me make a bad choice. That afternoon, I sent Clara one final change without copying Graham. I added a larger illuminated sign with our married name. Brokes. I stared at the preview while the hidden sash waited beneath tissue paper in my closet. One name for the ceremony. One night to pretend it had not reached me yet. Graham found me packing the evening before the party. My silver dress hung from the wardrobe. The white sash remained beneath it. He stopped in the bedroom doorway. His hand found the frame before he spoke. He said he wanted one honest conversation while there was still no audience. I closed the suitcase and asked whether this was another list of rules. He admitted he had made the problem worse. Every time I threatened to leave, he calmed me down. Every time I crossed a smaller line, he drove me home and cleaned up the next morning. He had confused patience with love and silence with peace. He named a donor dinner where a musician carried me through a hotel lobby while Kelsey filmed. Graham took me home, cleaned up the damage, and quietly asked her to delete it. I called the problem solved. He said each rescue taught me he would erase consequences before I saw them. That was more honesty than he usually offered. I answered with the one thing he could not deny. He had forgiven so much without consequences that he trained me to hear every boundary as a speech. He always stayed. He always fixed it. He had made his own limits unbelievable. Graham nodded. He said that was true. The answer slowed me for one breath. Then he asked whether his failure gave me permission to break a promise on purpose. I accused him of waiting until he had already judged me before sharing a feeling. He spoke to Rachel. He corrected Clara. He built a calm little file, then arrived in a doorway with a conclusion. Graham said facts felt safer because every emotional sentence became proof that he was controlling. That was also true. Two true things did not know how to live in the same room. He sat beside the suitcase. Rachel knew the exact words because he needed one person to know the pattern. Clara knew only decisions affecting contracts. The bridesmaids had his number for safety, not surveillance. The sash waited beneath my hand. Graham said he still wanted the ceremony. He needed one promise kept when breaking it would earn applause. He asked whether the sash existed. I said no. His hand left the doorframe. He wished me a safe night and walked away. I listened to his steps cross the landing. He did not return to ask again. That bothered me more than anger. A man preparing to fight would have opened the door twice. Noor came early the next afternoon to help with my hair. She found the sash while looking for fashion tape. She held it by 2 fingers and read both sides. The letters looked larger in the bedroom. Noor asked how strangers were supposed to know the words and bare hand were only a costume. I said grown adults understood bachelorette parties. I said I would wear it for one photograph. She asked why I had lied to Graham. I told her the surprise was the point. If he cared, one photograph would wake him up. Noor said jealousy was not proof of love. Sometimes it was only pain with an audience. I asked when she had become Graham's messenger. She showed me his number on her phone. He had sent it to the bridesmaids that morning with one request. If I needed a safe ride, they should call him. If the marriage became part of the entertainment, Noor should call before the situation became dangerous. Kelsey received the same message and answered with a laughing face. Noor had not answered. I said Graham had recruited spies. Noor said he had offered transportation. His full message said he would not come unless invited or needed. It contained no order about clothes, drinks, or dancing. I said a polite request could create more pressure than a command. Noor asked whether any version of his concern was allowed to count. The sash lay between us on the bed. White. Clean. No number. No stain. It could still remain there. For a few seconds, I admitted the simple thing. I did not want a stranger. I wanted Graham to walk into the club, see men around me, and choose me in front of everyone. I wanted the fight my father had never given my mother. I remembered the afternoon my father left. The hallway cupboard had been open, and the empty hook where his coat belonged looked more frightening than shouting would have. My mother stood beside it and said his calmness had been the warning. Since then, calm love always carried an exit behind it. Graham's patience had first made me feel safe. Later, the same patience sounded like shoes being packed while I slept. If he came to the club, there would be no hidden exit. 4 friends would watch him cross the room for me. The sight would close an old door that had nothing to do with our marriage. The thought was too needy to keep. I called it passion instead. Kelsey arrived with sparkling wine and the 3 markers. She put the sash over my shoulder while Noor watched. She walked around me with her phone, testing camera angles. The front could be read from across the bedroom. The back looked best when I turned and lifted my hair. Kelsey suggested a rule. Men could write numbers, but I would not call them. That made the whole act symbolic. Noor said a phone number was not a symbol to the person writing it. Kelsey told her to stop acting like the mother of the bride. I opened the sparkling wine before the argument could become serious. 1 glass for each of us. Noor left hers untouched. I removed my ring to see how my hand looked beside the Satan. Bare skin made the message cleaner. Then I put the ring back on. 1 photograph. Maybe 2. At the front door, Graham waited to say goodbye. His palm rested on the frame. He looked at my ring first. I promised I would come home after breakfast. He said he would keep his phone on. He asked whether I wanted him to drive us to the hotel. Kelsey answered that brides needed an entrance without husbands. I watched Graham's face for jealousy. He only picked up my overnight bag and placed it in the rideshare trunk. I kissed him once, picked up the bag holding the hidden sash, and walked past his hand. 3 markers clicked together inside the bag. The club had blue lights over the entrance and warm red lights above the dance floor. Kelsey had booked a raised booth where everyone could see us. There were 5 of us at the start. Kelsey. Noor. 2 women from work. Me. 1 bottle arrived with a paper crown. Another came with sparklers. Men at the next table turned before the server reached us. I counted 4 looks in the first minute. If Graham cared, that number should have mattered. Kelsey waited until the first round was gone. Then she pulled the sash from my bag and held it above her head. The women from work cheered. Noor stayed seated. I removed my ring and placed it in the inside pocket of my handbag. The pocket did not close because my lipstick case blocked the zip. Then Kelsey lowered the satin over my head. Single tone it crossed my chest. You still have a chance ran down my back. The first man asked whether it was true before the sash lay flat. I said a chance was not a promise. Kelsey gave him a marker. He wrote his first name and number near my shoulder. The black ink smelled sharp and sweet. A second man wrote beneath him. A third added a short message about breakfast. 3 men. 1 strip of satin. Still a joke. Kelsey stood me on the booth for a photograph. Another man wrote near my knee while his friends shouted advice. 5 signatures. 4 numbers. The satin already looked used. Noor asked me to put the ring back on. I told her she was acting married enough for both of us. She said the men did not know I was joking. I answered that grown adults understood bachelorette parties. At 11:40, Mason approached. He was tall, sober, and more direct than the others. He read the front, then walked around me to read the back. He asked whether he still had a chance. I laughed and said that depended on how well he used it. Noor told him I was legally married. I interrupted her. I said the formal ceremony was in 2 weeks and this was my final free night. Mason looked at my bare hand. The ring remained visible inside the open bag on the booth. He asked whether my husband knew what the sash said. I told him my husband knew other men wanted me. That was not an answer. Mason accepted it because the invitation across my body was louder. Kelsey filmed him writing his number across my hip. The marker pulled against the satin. He had to place one hand at my waist to keep the cloth still. I looked at Kelsey's camera and smiled. Mason wrote Call ME beneath the number. I told my friends Graham might frame the sash as proof he had won. Noor moved away from the booth. At midnight, Mason asked me to dance. I went because standing beside the table had become boring. His hand began at my waist. When the room became crowded, it moved lower. I did not remove it. The music was too loud for thought. That was useful. Kelsey filmed from the edge of the floor. 2 minutes. 3. Mason turned me, and the numbered sash flashed beneath the blue lights. He asked where I lived and whether the hotel suite had a separate room. I gave him the neighborhood, not the address, and said the best jokes contained a possible truth. Wet ink from another man's number marked Mason's hand. I saw it and laughed. Noor appeared beside us and told Mason again that I was married. He let go. I took his wrist and returned his hand to my waist. That was the moment the joke stopped needing anyone else's help. I told Noor not to create a scene. She asked me to leave with her. I said Graham trusted me. She said trust was not permission to lie. I reminded her that she had spent months calling him too serious. She admitted that she had been wrong about this night. Her honesty annoyed me more than judgment would have. Kelsey asked Noor to stop ruining the brides last night. Noor said a legal wife had no last night as a single woman. I told everyone Noor was turning my fun into a speech because nobody had asked to sign her dress. Her face changed. I knew it was cruel, but I said she had chosen sides first. Mason asked whether my husband might come. I said Graham did not make scenes. He forgave. That was what he did. One of the women from work asked whether I was worried he would leave. I laughed. I said he would never leave. I had made him forgive me too many times for him to start now. Kelsey's camera captured every word. Noor walked toward the club entrance with her phone. I saw her go. I assumed she needed air. The entrance opened several times while she stood there. Cold air crossed the floor. I kept my back to it because Mason had asked whether he could take me somewhere quieter. I said the hotel suite was already full. At 12:40, Noor told me Graham had come. I said she was lying to scare me. She showed me the empty doorway. No husband. No proof. I decided he had never arrived. Noor said he had stood there long enough to see everything. I asked why he had not approached. She said perhaps approaching me was no longer his job. Kelsey found an empty entrance and accused Noor of inventing him to end the party. I chose Kelsey's laugh over Noor's face. Mason left after Noor told him my courthouse date and full married name. He said he did not get involved with married women. I accused him of pretending to have principles after using the sash for an invitation. He did not answer. He wiped the black number from his hand with a napkin and left the napkin on our table. I still had his number across my hip. That felt like winning the smaller argument. Kelsey ordered another bottle. The two women from work returned to the booth. Noor took a rideshare home without saying goodbye. One friend gone. 4 women left. Enough for the story I wanted. At 2:30, I sent Graham a photograph of the Sash. 7 numbers. Black fingerprints. Bare hand raised beside my face. I wrote that he could either trust his wife or admit he wanted a prisoner. The message showed as read. No response. I smiled because silence had always ended the same way. Graham calmed down. Graham waited. Graham forgave. We slept in the hotel suite after sunrise. My ring stayed in the bag. The sash hung from a lamp with the numbers facing the room. By breakfast, I was certain my husband had spent the night waiting for me to come home. The front door was open when my rideshare stopped. 2 suitcases rested beneath the covered porch, but the lock had not been changed. His hand was on the frame. For 1 second, I thought he had finally prepared the scene I wanted. Rachel stood behind him. A grey-haired woman sat beside an open leather folder. Graham stepped back so I could enter. He said the locks had not been changed and I could collect any personal item I wanted. The woman introduced herself as Evelyn Shaw. She was there to witness a temporary proposal, not remove me by force. I accused Graham of planning an ambush. He placed his phone on the entry table and started the video. The first image showed the club floor. My silver dress. Mason's hands. The white sash covered in black numbers. Then the camera moved slightly. The mirror behind me caught the entrance. Graham stood there in the blue light with one hand on the doorframe. I set my handbag down. My fingers stayed around both handles. Noor had told the truth. He had come. The recording continued. I heard myself say he would never leave because I had made him forgive me too many times. Kelsey's laugh followed. Then I watched Graham lower the phone in the mirror, remove his hand from the frame, and turn away. The title on the sash became the only explanation left in the room. I accused him of spying on me. Rachel said Noor had requested a safe ride. Graham had stayed at the public entrance while other phones were already filming. I called Rachel his witness. She said she was a witness to 5 years of threats I later described as jokes. Graham did not argue about my intent. He said I had been right about one thing. He had come to take his wife home. The woman he found was advertising herself as single. Beside Evelyn's folder lay the ceremony cancellation, a printed photograph of the sash, and the messages I had sent Kelsey about making Graham jealous enough to fight. Noor had saved them. Clara had cancelled the venue, and both families had received the courthouse date, Graham's boundary, my promise, and the unedited clip. Nobody needed an insult about me. I wrote in the family chat that Graham had filmed me and taken my home over a harmless joke. My aunt answered that the door was open. Clara removed me from the cancelled ceremony group. My first version had arrived second. I reached for Kelsey. I sent a photograph of the suitcases and Evelyn's folder. Read. No reply. Evelyn explained that the house, company, and most business savings had existed before the marriage. Graham's parents had paid the refundable ceremony deposits. The agreement protected those assets, while my accounts and proper marital share remained mine. The petition and temporary residence proposal would be filed Monday. The door and my access stayed open. My old studio lease still ran past the ceremony date. Graham asked me to use it for the weekend. I claimed financial control until Evelyn placed my account summaries beside the agreement. I had mistaken free access for ownership. Access had felt permanent. It was not. I moved back into the studio apartment whose lease I had planned to end after the ceremony. I kept my salary, personal accounts, and marital share, but Graham's company income and his parents' wedding fund stopped supporting my life. Noor ended the friendship. Rachel used practical messages only, and the ceremony group disappeared from my phone. Mason blocked me after learning I was married, while Kelsey read 3 more messages without answering. I kept my job, but the Arts Centre board removed me from one donor gala after a sponsor received the club recording. The sash rested in a clear sleeve beside 2 cancelled invitations. 7 numbers remained visible through the plastic. None belonged to a man who wanted the life that came after the party. I wore the sash because I wanted to watch my husband fight for me. I never imagined he would see it, turn around, and finally stop fighting.